You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. This is just a chapter from my life story, and I know that my past is just a place of reference. It is not my final destination. I have counted it all joy, the trials, the tears, the roadblocks, and the pain, because it all has been a testing of my faith, which has produced much patience. I thank God for what I've endured because it has made me the woman I am today. So don't feel sad for me, but let's rejoice together because if God can bring me through, He can do the same for you. And I know with confidence that this is not how the story ends. Well, for the past year and a half, I've gone through a very painful divorce. My husband of 8 years decided one day that he just didn't want to be married anymore, or at least married to me. He went to great extremes to make sure he didn't have to communicate or see me and our two daughters. I refer to the girls as our daughters because I'm no stranger to loss and heartbreak. My girls were 4 and 1 when their father was murdered. So my ex-husband has been a part of their life for over 8 years. So with his decision to move on with his life, he left a lot of unanswered questions from myself as well as the girls. That's a great question because in the beginning, I wasn't coping well at all. I've always been a very strong woman, not because I have to be, just because, that's a part of my personality. But I had many insecurities that arose during this time. I was made aware of many infidelities and a plethora of secrets and lies, came to the forefront. It's definitely very scary that someone who knows you so well that you have shared your vulnerable and weak moments with could take advantage of that. I trusted my husband, and he betrayed me in ways I wouldn't have even imagined. But I definitely, truly thank God for who He is in my life and for the loving friends and family He placed in my life to be a source of strength I could draw from. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed, and even some days I didn't even want to live. I had to take everything I thought I knew about my husband and my marriage and even myself and reevaluate it next to the Word of God. Wow. Okay. Well, I was insecure about myself as a woman and as a wife, as a mother, and as a Christian. When your spouse cheats, I can definitely guarantee that 10 out of 10 times it will be with someone totally opposite than you. So I felt unattractive and very unsure of what I even had to offer my husband. I know my role as a wife, and I felt inadequate with my ability to meet the needs of my husband. having daughters, I want to be an example of strength and beauty and vulnerability all rolled up into one. But I did not want them to think that it was okay to tolerate the emotional roller coaster I was on. My insecurity as a Christian came from my ex constantly pointing out ways I reacted or behaved that did not line up with the Word of God. But I battled within myself because I also knew how I was being treated was not right. Yes, but not physically. The abuse I suffered was emotional abuse. As a society, we are definitely very shallow in our thinking that if we don't see physical signs of abuse, then a person must not be being abused. But emotional abuse is any ongoing negative behavior used to control or hurt another person. It is characterized by a person subjecting or exposing another person to behavior that may result in psychological trauma, including anxiety, chronic depression, or PTSD. And so I can honestly say that I suffered from a few of these conditions. I was anxious, trying to keep my marriage together and figuring out what I could do to help my husband. We were soul tied, and he was just so callous and thinking and believing that what he was doing, only affected him. I lost weight, I gained weight, I lost hair. I couldn't sleep. I became depressed. My health suffered because of the stress. So I occupied my mind and my time with ways to save my marriage and my husband. And I believed him when he said, he wanted to work things out and that he loved me. And I realized that that just put me back on the emotional roller coaster again and again. And I finally, had to catch on to the emotional games that he was playing with me. I could go down a long laundry list of things my husband did that hurt me, that destroyed our marriage and nearly destroyed me. But I don't want my testimony to be about all the things that were done to me. I don't take pleasure in defaming anyone's character. My prayer is always for my ex husband to surrender completely to Christ before it's too late. But my testimony is about what God has done in me and through me. So I don't wish to go into great detail outside of what I've already shared because I want God to be glorified in this situation and not the enemy magnified. Well, I've definitely learned a lot, but I've learned to trust God wholeheartedly. One of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 3 5 through 6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths." This became so real in my life during this time. I realized each time I took my focus off of God and focused on my husband, I found myself off track, dealing with emotions and feelings that were not bringing life but death. I also learned I was just collateral damage in this whole thing. I wasn't the bad person, the enemy, the problem. Whatever my husband was dealing with was inside of himself, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and it had nothing to do with me. Once I grasped that concept, I stopped taking things so personal. Lastly, I have to say that Philippians 4:7 became so real in my life. At times, I was just in complete awe. And Philippians 4:7 says, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ." At times, I could have fallen apart, finally lost it, or gave up. I just experienced an overwhelming presence of peace, and I knew that it was God. Oh man, what would I tell them? Well, there's so much that I would say, but if I had to give them just three things, maybe four things, I would say number one, trust God. Sometimes we stay in situations longer than we have to or need to because we are trying to tell God how to be God. We want to be the driver and the passenger, and that's not going to work. Number two, get a support system. And, by support system, I mean those people that can get a prayer through. I will admit that there is shame that comes along with divorce, but your support system doesn't have to be 20 people deep. Just a few close, trusted friends that can be your strength on days you are feeling weak or like you want to give up. Number three, I would definitely say know your value and your worth. When you know that, you will not tolerate anyone treating you any old way. First Corinthians 13, I'm sorry, First Corinthians 13, 4 through 7 talks about what love is and what it looks like. So if someone says they love you, then you should see these things in action. And number four, forgive, 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 forgive. And forgiveness frees you. And don't allow bitterness and anger and hatred to take root in your heart, or else you will be in bondage long after your divorce is finalized. So, yeah, that would probably be what I would tell, women who might be experiencing this same thing or getting ready to go through it or have been through it and still haven't found a way to cope. Yes. Okay, so what now? Well, people have asked me if I've given up on love now because of this, and the answer is no, absolutely not. God is love. So if I give up on love, I'm giving up on God. But I thank God for everything I've gone through and endured. I wouldn't be able to be here today to encourage and inspire others, male and female, if these events never took place. I know that God will open doors for me to share my testimony and bring hope to others. I do have a ministry that the Lord gave me about 6 years ago that I'm actively bringing to fruition, of course, with God's direction. But it's called Embrace Your Diva Ministries. And Diva stands for Divine Inspirational Victorious Attitude. I want to see women walking in the fullness of God, knowing their worth, walking in their purpose, and pursuing their destiny. And the awesome thing is that God gave me this ministry long before the dismantling of my marriage. So that's how I know that this is truly God given. So that's all for now. Wherever God leads me, I'm definitely surrendered and ready and willing to go.